I think it all comes down to the power of story. You see, my background is in policy. And again, in policy, we can be very detailed and write great reports that very few people end up reading. Why? Because it isn't compelling. The purpose of film is to use story to make a very difficult and complex subject much more compelling, much more accessible. Of course, does it mean because the power film has, it could misrepresent? Yes, sure. But that's where the responsibility of filmmakers and the responsibility of those holding filmmakers accountable in a way, like the markets, do come into play, because we must try and increase the standards of how we tell the stories in film. So we do discuss complex issues like the Rohingya. We do portray all sides. We do portray the complexity. We do portray the suffering, which is so real, so genuine. And we do also, very importantly, engage the people who are most affected. It's very easy for people in the West to assume we have the right to tell the story for other people. But I think what's most effective is when we put the microphone in the hand of the people being affected, so they have a seat around the table to tell their stories. What we try and do with our film is make that possible. So the filmmaker making the film on the Rohingya, Eric Nyari, has a Rohingya co-producer and a Rohingya cast. So in a way, we're getting the community. He's getting the community to make the film with him, and I think that's what we find so admirable, because that's what helps us capture the complexity. That if I, as a Brit, were to summarise it, I might be a bit reductionist. But when a Rohingya is telling you his own story, oh, you can be sure there's no reductionism. So we've done a lot of work in the past with the Roma community, which is the largest minority in Europe. They go by different names into a place. People refer to them as gypsies or travellers. Again, for a long part of their history, they have been misrepresented in various negative stereotypes, whether it's thieves or peddlers, and it's very unfortunate because, number one, it's perpetrating very negative images. Number two, it's denying the group its own voice in how it projects itself, or how it carves out a future or a role for itself in society. But more recently, we've seen like an excellent the Roma communities formed wonderful civic society organizations. One of them is called ERIAC, like the European Roma Institute for Arts and Culture. And we've done a few events with them at Cannes to talk about how we can improve the representation of Roma in film. Whether it's getting who represents the Roma. Should a white European be portraying a Roma person when a Roma European can be portraying a Roma person? So number one is that. And who makes the films about the Roma? When we do make a film about the Roma, who's telling the Roma story? So there are so many ways in which we can improve representation. Again, because of a policy hat. We're not interested in representation as a tick box thing. You do one line to feel good and then that's it. We say, oh, we're not greenwashing or virtue washing the subject. We really want to get down to the nitty gritty and see how we can transform the industry by having more meaningful, sustainable and authentic ways to improve representation. When you look at Venice and Cannes both, over the last few years there has been a greater focus on impact. Now, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when we started doing more on impact at the film festivals, people still didn't know what we were talking about. Like, what is impact? Why should we care? Aren't we just artists? Does impact bring in money? What about who funds the film? Who watches the film? Would audiences come to a film that sounds preachy? And your film doesn't have to sound preachy to have impact. Every film has a potential for impact. It's about how we flesh out those themes, how we cover topics, put a focus on issues like representation, accessibility, people with disability, sustainability, climate, how we think about these issues, how we engage with them in our film and through our film. These are the things that matter. What we've seen in recent years is the development of an impact program at Cannes, the introduction of a Golden Globe Prize for documentary at Cannes, which we partnered with the Golden Globes to come up with, at Venice. Last year we had an Impact Award, this year as well. Again, we bring together a very high-profile jury to look at every aspect of the film, the story, the quality, how compelling it is, but also the potential, the capacity, and the delivery of impact. So are Venice and Cannes embracing impact? Well, the more they give a platform to companies like ours and to the work of organisations like the Better World Fund and others, yes, they are. They are showing, they are creating space for impact in their programming, and that we very much welcome.